Go.
Welcome back, students, for day 2 of video math. We are on lesson 8-2, excuse me. Ms. Wilson, want to give a shout out?
To all my righteous young homies out there, keep it real.
Same for Mr. Rose's class. Anyhow, I hope you found some success with dot plots yesterday. Today we're moving on to histograms. Histograms are a little bit more complicated than dot plots, but not much, so just listen up and remember you can always pause and review this tape. All right, so histograms, they are like dot plots whose dots have been fused together. They've been joined together, fused into bars. Although histograms resemble bar graphs, the bars of a histogram typically represent a continuous range of values rather than a single value, and I'm going to explain that right here. So here is a histogram and here is a bar graph. Let's zoom in on this. This shows a lot of data. It's the United States population in 2000, a little bit dated, but oh well. Now, remember, we have our titles here, our labels. This is in millions. So they're in the age group of 0 to kids 14 and under, so 14 and under. We have 60 million students or kids in 2000. That's a lot of kids. Can you imagine doing dot plots for that? That would take too much. So then the next range, which these are called bins, by the way, is ages 15 to 24. And then so on and so forth, all the way to people who are 75 years and older. So remember, histograms show a large amount of data into ranges, as opposed to bar graphs, who show not as much data in a single data point. So this shows the US population as of 1980. So only the year 1980, and then so forth. So one data point, as opposed to histograms, which shows a range, okay? And here's a little hint. Histograms are useful when displaying a large amount of data. So those are your math notes for today. We're going to move on to the homework side. Okay, so I kind of helped you out a little bit here. So
Slide it
here,
forward a little.
I'm sorry?
Slide it up a
A
little.
little bit, okay.
Perfect.
All right, just got to listen to my cameraman. So here we have a grid on the right, all right? We're going to show, I drew a line plot for you. A line, and I labeled it 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because our data ranges go from 1 to 5. Now the dots are going to represent how many number ones. So we have, I circled it because remember Mr. Wilson gave you that tip to tick them off or cross them off, so do whatever you want. I didn't want to block out the number 1. So I have 1, 2, 3 number ones, 1, 2, 3 number ones. You'll go through, count how many number 2s, cross them off, show that many dots. That's a simple way to draw a dot plot. So we're just reviewing dot plots. But today's goal, make, read, and interpret a dot plot right up here. Make, read, and interpret a histogram, which is the rest of this. And of course, have fun. All right, so we have a table that shows the sales for a pretzel stand in 14 days. And these are the sales in dollars. So we have a wide range of data here, okay? So when you're making a histogram, we need to decide how we're gonna divide that data up. So if we look at our chart here at the bottom, I counted, we had 20 squares per row. So across the bottom, 20 squares. Well, we need to figure out which factors will divide evenly into 20 to divide it. So we could have divided it into 2 and had 10 bins. We could have divided it into 4 and had 5 bins. Divided into 5, had 4 bins, so on and so forth. I made the decision to divide it by 4, which gave us 4 bins, but each bin is 5 squares wide. Does that make sense? So I counted 5 squares, drew a line. 5 squares, 5 squares, 5 squares. Okay? Then,
So what does each square represent, Mr. Rosa?
well, then I went back to my table and I looked at my chart here and I kind of looked at the range. Well, here we have a $961, right? That's our lowest data point. And then our highest data point, is $1,483. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ranges we need to divide that into. So I just kind of guessed and checked, and I came up with starting at $990 to $1,049. I didn't go to $1,050 because I have to make that distinction, okay? So this one is divided into $1,050 all the way to $1,199, $1,200 to $1,349, $1,350 to $1,499. That will fit the range of money. Okay, so this is the sales in dollars, and don't forget to label your chart. So if you look at your data table here, we have sales at a pretzel stand, that goes at the top. Days, that goes on the side. And, but don't make a mistake, it's not 14 days. I'm sorry, I want to clarify that. It's how many days sold that range of pretzels. Okay, so that's going to be the tricky part. How many days sold that range? And then last but not least, we have our sales and then our unit dollars. Okay? This might sound confusing, but IXL strands, GG11 and GG12 will help you along if you want to do those before you start this. All right, I did the first range for you. So I went back, our range is $990 to $1,049. So I ticked these off. Make sure you do that. And we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days that fit this range. So then I counted off day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, drew it over and colored it in. 5 days from our table fit this dollar range. So your next step, which is independent, you're gonna find and you're gonna go through and look at all the data. And you're gonna make an X or whatever you wanna do for which days, how many days go $1,050 to $1,199. Count those days, draw it over, color it in, so on and so forth, and then double check your work. All right, moving, do you have anything you want to add?
I think that sounds great.
All right, go on over to the remembering side. I gave you a little bit of hints. So this one looks a little bit confusing because I drew lines in it, but we've done this before. Remember, remembering is review. So you're gonna divide, excuse the way I spelled it, divide your shape evenly into the smallest part. Well, the smallest part was like this big. So that told me it wasn't halves or whatever, it was divided into rows of 4, okay? So remember, count up, you're doing part to whole, your whole is how many all together, your part is how many are shaded, and then figure out your percentage. All right.
Remember, our whole represents 100.
100, thank you. Now, distributed property, I know this is a skill that we struggle on, so if you'll just zoom in over here, Mr. Wilson, IXL, Y11 and Y12 will review this. If you struggle with this, please help yourself and then ask us questions if you need to. So when we're using distributed practice, you can either distribute a value into a parenthesis of quantity, right? Or as on number 3, you can pull out. So let's go back to number 2. Sorry for the flip-flopping. But here we have 6 times the quantity, 9T plus 5. So we're going to distribute 6 times to 9T. 6 times 9 is 54, and we just hook the T right on. Then here's our operation plus 6 times 5 is 30 plus S. We don't have any like terms, so we don't have to combine. That is simplified. All right, let's go over here. So on this number 3, we have 4 plus 45T plus 36T squared minus 2S. We are going to pull out here, the only factors in these terms they share are a 9T. So we're going to leave this 4 alone. We're going to leave it as 4 plus, well, we're going to pull out a 9T. 9T times the quantity. Well, Mr. Wilson, if I divide 45T by 9T, what do I get?
5.
Awesome. Plus, what if we divide 36T squared by 9T, we get
4.
and a T. Because remember, T times T is squared. Okay. And then we're going to leave minus 2S. All right. Again, I encourage you to go to IXL Y11 for this. All right. This one's going to be kind of quick. Here's your line plot. This is Mrs. Alton's class. That's important. You need it for Stretch Your Thinking. Mrs. Alton's class, you're just going to interpret this data, answer these questions. How many students are in Miss Alton's class? That's important because if you look at these and Stretch Your Thinking, both classes have the same number of students. And I went through and helped you out on the first one. It reads, there are twice as many students who have 3 pets as in Miss Alton's. Miss Alton's has 2 students with 3 pets. Twice as many means 2 times 2 is 4. So 4 students have 3 pets. So these two numbers are going to be the same. When you add all of these up, it's going to total however many students are in Mrs. Alton's class. As always, you guys are the best. We miss you, and we don't like teaching like this, so hang tight. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
See you someday. Take care.